All right. Hello, everyone. All right, we're testing out StreamYard today as sort of a first foray into YouTube Live. Just going to do a quick check, just to make sure everything's working. Let's see, your channel. Right, looks like we're good. Sound. All right. Share this out with everybody. All right. Sounds good. Okay, I think that's good now. All right, so let's switch on over to. Oh, okay, this looks much better. I am echoing in my own ear. Okay, got it. All right. So today we are going to take a look at the new the new Nuxt content module. So just as like predecessor, right? Like when it comes to learning new things, it's always good to have a problem you're trying to solve. Well, Vue.js Events currently runs on the VuePress platform. And so that's been good for us sort of getting started. And I've really loved what VuePress provides as far as like really a Markdown first experience. So all these pages you see are really just Markdown underneath. And VuePress does a lot to basically automate pieces of it as far as like drop downs and sort of like a lot of features you like to use on things that are typically like open source, so you have a lot of people maintaining it, so making it easy for people to click edit. Looks like this page is broken for whatever reason, so little things like that are basically what we're looking for, and things like last updated. And so yeah, as we take a look at Vue.js Events sort of next like iteration as far as the 2.0, there's a lot of features that I'd like to start building on as far as like making it easier to create just better resources and just making the whole platform just more dynamic as a whole. So given that, what we're going to do then is we're going to go ahead and actually create a branch of the Vue.js Events, and let's go ahead and we're going to migrate this over to Nuxt platform. So as a little bit of background, so I actually have like just exposure level to Nuxt.js. I haven't had the chance to use it on a production level app or anything, and have heard many wonderful things about it, and have seen sort of that people have really enjoyed using it. And so, when it comes to open source projects, like it's good to have a framework like Nuxt to provide that base. And another reason for the inspiration to actually migrating to Vue from the VuePress is, in addition, I'd love to check out this new content module that Nuxt released just last week. I believe it was Friday, actually. And so the idea here is that it takes a lot of what the VuePress features that I love, as far as like being able to have like sort of Markdown first content, and then providing like text search. You see like Vue components in Markdown, which to me was a huge like awesome thing as far as sort of allowing people to edit things and just making it easier for just people to focus on content rather than development. So I figure let's start playing around. And also, while the VuePress default theme certainly does the job for a lot of things, I certainly would like to take it to another level. And so some of you have probably also heard a lot about StreamYard. And so StreamYard, sorry, brain part. Tailwind CSS, which basically utility first CSS. So I haven't had any real experience dealing with this firsthand, but as someone whose background is actually started with HTML and CSS, a friend of mine we talked about concepts like this in the past. So I would love to check out kind of what's going on here and why people love it and how we can use it in our own Vue apps. So given that, let's go ahead and get started. So taking a look at the basic roadmap, basically what I want to try to get done today is to sort of go through and migrate over some basic pieces as far as the data. Currently on the events page, we have resources. We have a page that tells you all about the different meetups. And then there's another one, organize the resources. That's another thing. So these are probably the first things we want to do to be honest, just to get up and running and to just check out Nuxt content. I think that's the really first thing we do. So again, as someone who is newer, let's go ahead and check out the docs. So it looks like we're going to go ahead and actually just use the npx create Nuxt app to do this. So let's get started, shall we? I'm already on the repo for the event site. So let me see, that looks a little small. Okay, bump it up a little bit. Great. All right, so let's go ahead and check out a new branch for the Nuxt migration. Great. And then using what we saw earlier, we're going to do npx create app. That's all we're going to do, create Nuxt app. And so if all goes according to plan, this should create the Nuxt CLI will create a Nuxt scaffold inside the current Nuxt directory, inside the current application directory. So our project is events. The description is repo for Vue.js Events website. Yep. And I'm tempted to use TypeScript, but let's keep it at the JavaScript for now. I like using Yarn. And as I mentioned, we're going to actually try to use Tailwind CSS. As far as a custom server framework, I don't think I need that right now, so I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm going to go ahead and add Axios and progressive web app support. Not sure what .env is, but we'll hello, Lady Mashiro. Yes, I'm excited. It should be good. All right, so let's go ahead and add on all the linting tools, because linting is great, especially when it comes to open source projects, especially because this allows people to have just better standards, and you don't have to worry about pull requests that have just random spaces and edge, and just everything can be kept consistent across different code bases. So as far as the rendering mode, I'm just I guess I'll stick with universal for now, but I think at some point it'll be worth diving into whether or not it would be better to use SSR versus single page app. And then, yeah, since development tools, since I am in VS Code, I'm just going to use the jsconfig.json. All right. So in the meantime, while that's installing, let's take a look at sort of the path forward. So for those who might be wondering, I'm using a tool called Whimsical, which allows you to basically create workflows and wireframes and diagrams all sort of in one place. Think of it like a collaborative whiteboard. And so basically, yeah, this just kind of gives me a sense of sort of what I'm trying to do, is give me a plan forward, which will be resulting in the landing page, which sort of, again, we'll see that on the current events page, it really just has a really simple description of what Vue Events is, and then some basic description. But again, this is a pretty vanilla, since this is just using the VuePress default theme out the box. But based on, after having run Vue Events for a little while and talking to a lot of different event organizers, most people who are coming to the site, honestly, they are looking to basically, they have a specific persona they're looking to represent, whether they're an attendee, organizer, or speaker. And more importantly, the most important information that Vue.js Events can really help to surface is, whether or not there are call for proposals out, what kind of events are upcoming, and as well as possibly if we're doing any remote workshops, that kind of thing. People should be easy for people to find out about these things. So this is a very, very basic wireframe, but this is basically what we're going to try to get up and running. All right, great. Everything's looking good. So if we go ahead, let's go ahead and expand this piece. We'll see that actually what's nice is, even though originally the source for the VuePress all lives in the source directory, everything, actually the way the Nuxt scaffolds everything, it actually doesn't interfere. So there's like a slight like concern like did like override, but actually our everything still stayed the same. So that is pretty sweet. So let's go ahead and just get started. Let's have it see if everything's running. So we have it on port 30 or 3000, sorry. I say port 30 because I have a macro that allows me to basically go to different ports based on two-digit number rather than typing all four out. So 8080 for me is 88 and 8000 is just 80. So there we go. So I've got an open port. Great. So everything's looking good. Now, the Vue.js Events site, everything about it is based on the content. So the first thing we're going to want to take a look at now is how to get this Nuxt content module inside of our project. All right, so looks pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and do that. Yarn add Nuxt content. Okay, everything's good to go. So if you look at the docs, let me just move this up and move the icon down. All right, so it looks like what we got to do now is go ahead and add our module to the Nuxt config. So this is cool. This is familiar. This is fairly standard as far as most frameworks go. There's always a config file that allows you to configure things. So, and then for those that aren't as familiar, again, all it's doing is exporting a simple JavaScript object. And then what happens in here is sort of well documented as far as like the API for interacting with different things. So earlier we were talking about like universal SSR versus like SPA, so single page application. So it looks like this is configured right here in case we ever need to change it. So let's go ahead and look to see if they already have the modules options available for us. So let's see, we have CSS plugin build modules, but that's what it, here we go, Nuxt.js modules. So you can see earlier, actually, we had already added the Axios and PWA one. So that's great. So this is actually just the same way. Hey, Robert, thanks for joining. Okay, so one little slight thing, again, I don't know if they're going to standardize this, but I guess noticing this, I would have expected the name spacing to be the same. So it's interesting that Nuxt and Nuxt.js are different. Again, since I know this is from the Nuxt team, I'm not really concerned that they're like two different things, but there was something like a slight, like sort of, oh, that's different. All right, that's it. So we've added it to the Nuxt config. Great. We are not worried about types right now. So let's talk about writing content. Great. Okay. So it looks like the next piece is to create actually, I know what I did, what I like to do. Pause for a second. Let's go ahead and commit all our code. So we've gone ahead and we've added a bunch of Nuxt config stuff, which is great. Let's go ahead and add all that in just so that we have all of these things tracked. Why is it not safe for commit? There we go. Then for those wondering, sort of the UI that I'm using, this is called TIG. So TIG is like Git just spelled backwards, and it allows you to sort of interact with the Git commands just a little bit differently. So this is not as useful as it used to be before VS Code had like an easy way to compare, but this was really convenient back before you didn't have an easy way to see what exactly was happening in each file. A little bit out of muscle memory that I'm not using the basically the VS Code commit. Anyhow, so this was a config, and we basically set up the Nuxt CLI app with content module. So in case we break anything, which as we know, we already have a problem. Okay, Tailwind config. All right, so this is the beauty of linting and sometimes also the pain. So let's find out what's going on in Tailwind config. That's probably the first place to start. So it looks like, oh, okay, so Pretty is complaining that so luckily I already have auto formatting on, so let me move that over. Committed. I know that. So let's try that again. Git commit, add it. Perfect. And that was it. Yeah, again, so, some people, when it comes to linting on commit, there are sometimes some concerns. So the key thing is to make sure that, that it doesn't take too long because you don't want to impede development. But the idea here is to make it easier for everyone to submit code that adheres to a standard, and so that you don't have to deal with requesting really sort of minor changes that often can be annoying and hold up an entire feature, just because you're trying to keep the code base standard. Okay, content is good. What we're going to do next is, per the instructions, we're going to create a content directory. And let's just create, I'm just going to create an events.md. So I'm going to start with Markdown for now, just because I just wanted to, this is my events page, and hello. That's all we're going to do. Okay, so looking at the docs, this is good. All right, so it'll convert everything. I think, okay, so the documentation goes a lot more into like the different things you can do with it, but we're not going to worry about that right now. We just want to actually fetch and display. We want to make sure that it actually works. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and start up our dev server while we're checking out the documentation. All right, so content path only. Okay, so these are a bunch of methods. Okay, so we know that the module injects a content instance, this.content, great. Context, okay. So again, I'm new to Nuxt, so this is one of the things where I'm going to assume that then this can be called from anywhere, but let's I mean, you know, best way to find out is to do it ourselves. So let's go ahead and, all right, we have our events page here. Great. And so the one thing I know about Nuxt that's pretty great is that all their stuff is done like, instead of having to do your own routing, it does it just like you would expect in a directory. Like when you do like, oh, I want like my homepage, that's like index. If I need to do like a workshop, like a directory like workshops, for example, that simply create like a folder named workshops, and you add like an index.html or index.vue, which was like good, which will eventually create the landing page for that directory, which is nice. So this is one of the things I know that like is a great convenience that Nuxt offers, and I love not having to deal with the routing. Especially when I'm like coming up with, basically when I'm coming up with an application. So given that, as I mentioned, let's go ahead and see if we can just log out the content stuff. Okay, so this is a function. Okay, it has something, so just call it content params. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so it's basically an instance that we can call that looks in a certain URL. Okay, still not quite there. My MVP is still to just bring in my, okay, bring in a path. Fetching content. Maybe I'm supposed to look. Display content. Nuxt content. Page body document page. Boy, they. Okay, so there's a lot of new stuff going on here. As someone new to Nuxt, let me blow this up a little bit for everyone. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna. Is this a little bit better? So one thing one thing about StreamYard is that you have that. So it would be nice if I was in the corner, but I'll drop this just a little bit larger for a bit. Let's test this out. Okay, so it's interesting. So the document here's the page title, and page is await okay, got it. So we're supposed to fetch the data inside of the async data. Okay, so that's a new model I'm not used to. All right, so we're going to do async data. So using so just because I have some experience with other like libraries, I actually do know. So this here, where it's destructuring the content, if I'm not mistaken, also just from a little bit of reading we did earlier, that this usually has a context that's past the async data. And so since we know in advance we're using content, then this is where it's coming from. Now that we know that, we're going to say that the page await content, what I called it, events. Okay. I'm going to assume that this home corresponds to home.md. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but we are going to find out. We're going to fetch it, and then we're going to return the page. Okay. And then what it's saying is that we should then use a Nuxt content and give it a prop of page. All right, let's see how that goes. I don't see anything happening. So let's check out the dev tools for a sec. Layout transition, Nuxt loading, Nuxt. Okay, pages, index, route, query, params. Logo. That's a little confusing. Okay, so let's clear out the boilerplate for now. Again, so all we should see theoretically is missing. Oh, ha! Thank you. Async data, great. Async data, async data. Yep. Thank you. All right, so components here are good. I don't know why it's yelling at me, but oh, hello, it works. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right, good. So it was just that easy. It looks like it does correspond directly. So now I'd love to see, based on our index.view, or sorry, I said it was events.md, right? So if we update this live, I'm curious. Hey, all right, great. So we have our hot module reloading from our async data that is being fed inside of our content. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump right in now. We're gonna go ahead and take what's currently inside of our ViewPress directory inside of data. So actually, I want to migrate the Meetup page. Let's just bring in all the people who are on this list. Again, we can mush this data in better ways in the future for migration. But as far as this goes, bam. Okay, so some styling issues, that's for sure. But that is minor at best. And actually, now that I remember, the reason why you'll notice that there are no styles attached is because we installed Tailwind, and Tailwind, from the little bit I did read and play around with prior to this, basically does have like I think they call it a pre-flight, which basically is a reset CSS so that you don't get any of that standard browser defaults. Okay, now that we know that, the weird thing to me is all of my links are, oh, they work. They're just not styled. Okay, that's good. That is good news. Okay. So we have all of this, and yeah, we have our Meetup page. It was basically that easy. So so now my next question that I'm thinking about for myself is, okay, so we have our Nuxt content. Is there anything I really need to know? Okay, so interesting. So as far as designing the app, it looks like we can provide, so Nuxt content automatically wraps a Nuxt content class around everything that's wrapped, which is nice. That's good for if we ever want to style like, I guess content specifically that's provided by the async, but I'm sort of a big believer in keeping CSS modular and reducing selector specificity as much as humanly possible. So I will probably avoid doing this for now, but it's good to know that they do provide that out of the box. The question I have now is, in the event that content now has multiple different directories, so in this case, this is currently called events, but let's just say I wanted to have in our content, we'll have like a meetups directory, and inside of meetups, let's just keep it simple. Let's say we have all like the meetups in like the United States. So let's just like grab a couple of them from the United States. I'm just going to grab this block right here. So now that we have the United States here, and I want to render USA instead, what I'm going to assume that I'm going to do then is actually have to be specific. So I'm going to go with what I think without looking at docs to see if this is as intuitive as I think it is. So meetup/USA is what I'm thinking, because I'm thinking it's going to look inside the directory and look for the USA. My other gut is that it's going to actually want to just me to type USA because they're maybe assuming all the pages will be unique identifiers, but I think that might be a mistake. But regardless, let's just find out what happens. If we break stuff, we break stuff. Hey, that worked. Okay, that is awesome. When it comes to API design, this is one of those things where as much as you can make it intuitive to your users, that it basically works the way they think, as little foot guns as humanly possible. That's awesome. So the next thing I want to check is to make sure that if my other instinct was correct. So again, I'm going to revert it back to events. And so we got the whole thing. So now if I just do USA, okay, that doesn't work. And it's probably for the best because it's expecting a path and not just basically it doesn't like crawl the entire directory as a way to figure out where things live. So letting you be explicit rather than sort of trying to be smart about it, which, as we know, sometimes when you try to be a bit clever about how things are, it can get in the way if you miss certain edge cases. So I am totally happy with this. So again, if my goal is to provide meetups USA, everything works as expected. So this is really good. So the other thing that the content module actually mentions is that we can do things, I believe it says it takes a lot of different styles. So if we go ahead and where am I on this page? Okay, this is a little funky. What happened? Okay, so I just want to go back to writing content. Okay, so right, it says that it takes any of these formats. So YAML, MD. So one thing that VuePress does really well is that it actually takes front matter from your Markdown links. So, okay, interesting. This example already actually includes Markdown. The front matter. So my question basically comes down to, okay, we definitely want to play Vue components later, but let's not get ahead of myself. Okay, we want to check how the heck the front matter piece works, because that's important in the event that you want to be able to provide an easy way for users to be able to basically provide meta content, and then which will then be rendered on the page. So again, if I'm going to say location is let's say there's a region property and we're going to call it North America. All right, let's just. So I guess let's just take a look to see how they do it. So it's in the directory meetups. Okay, this is cool. So the page comes with a bunch of stuff. It has a bunch of children with tags element. Okay. TOC usually stands for table of contents. So I'm curious what this is, but I'm a little sad. Okay, let me refresh again. Maybe it didn't refresh. Okay, Nuxt content document. Oh, I'm really looking for a front matter piece. That's interesting. Is it just, oh. Okay, so maybe you figured out what I did before I got there, but our region is actually directly on the page body. So they're actually automatically taking front matter and incorporating it. So again, let's try tags. One, blue, hexagon. Yeah, so these are being automatically integrated into the page itself. So this means that this page object now, in the event we were sort of doing that's the title, right? But that's fine. We can say, oh, what region are you in? Then this would be page dot region. And that worked. Okay, so as we're taking a look at this, that's great. I'm curious though. Okay, so maybe it would have been nice to see that in the docs. So let's see. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make some notes of things we can contribute, because docs are open source, so maybe they might appreciate that contribution. So let me go ahead and draw this. I'll make this yellow. All right, things to do. Add documentation for front matter. That is built into the Markdown without any additional configuration, which I think is really useful for people to know about. I know that was one of the things I loved about working on VuePress Markdown, was that this just worked out of the box. So the fact that it's automatically built in is great. It's just, again, having that explicit somewhere, and maybe it is somewhere else. So I will make sure to take a look. But overall, I'm glad to see that that still exists, so we can still leverage those pieces. Okay, now the next piece we want to take a look at is actually the JSON piece of this. So again, if we go ahead and transform this into JSON, and let's not make this terribly complicated, let's just say California has an array of meetups, and we'll just say, yeah, that's fine. There's an array of meetups, and it goes by LA, and then because they can technically, or we'll do city, let's be specific. Technically, meetups can have there can be multiple meetups. So again, let's call it LA1. Oh, name. I'll let Prettier take care of it later. LA number 1. Okay, and then how does this work? LA name number 2. Okay, I think that's enough to play with. Okay, so given Prettier broke because no longer this is JSON. Okay, wonderful. All right, so when we go ahead and go back to our page now, okay, nothing shows up. And why is that? That's the question. So we look at our dev tool, we have our page now. All right, so as JSON, it's actually taken the information and injected it directly. So it has fused the JSON right into the page. So this really, like, for the sake of being a bit more specific, this is just data. And so, did it not like that? Const data equals return data. I don't understand. Region of undefined. Oh, that's fine. Yes, that doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so right. Okay, so it's in data object. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we are fetching the JSON directly. It comes with a little bit of metadata as far as when it was updated. Oh, great. Oh, that's really good. Okay, so this was actually on my board, there was a piece for last updated data. This is like features I need to kind of take a look at, because to me, that's really important when it comes to documentation, and for anyone who's referencing anything, is to easily check out, like, basically when was this last updated. And check this out, it automatically includes that inside of the meta option. So basically, what I'm saying here is that we can just go last updated, and instead of, this is technically, I don't think this will render, but I'm gonna see what happens, see what it breaks anything. Then we can say data.last, updated at, that's fine. And not a stickler for that. Okay, great. Oh, it is. Yeah, it's in the not very readable for the average human, but it is certainly a good starting point. That's like the hard part. We can always use some sort of date parser to make it a bit more human readable. But that way we know we have our last updated feature. And in the event that I'm going to assume that it's based on save properties. So if we go ahead and add another state, and let's just do Virginia, and then let's do city, Richmond. All right, so if I save that, did it do anything? Let's see. So it's 18, 49, 32. Oh, that was surprising. Did not expect it to pretty print. Hey, that's even less work. That's nice. Okay, so I think it did update it because, yeah, 49, 32. Yeah. Good enough for me. Awesome. I am loving this Nuxt content module so far. Quite intuitive. I think as far as our roadmap goes, I think migrating data now will be a super piece of cake. So let's go ahead and check those off. In my excitement, I'm going to prepare my check marks. Check icons. Where's my done? I'm gonna choose this nice green one. All right. Gonna mark it off. All right, so let's migrate some stuff over. All right, gonna go ahead and delete. So yeah, it's interesting. This is not actually, you know what? One question I didn't totally clear up is that Nuxt content document. Basically, from what I understand, it allows you to render. Oh, well, there you go. This section is only for Markdown files. I wonder then, honestly, there's a small part of me that thinks that maybe instead of displaying content, it might should be just display Markdown. Unless there's really a reason to expand this later. If this really only is for the Markdown, it would have been a little bit clearer to just display Markdown, because content, as far as the Nuxt content module is concerned, as we saw, it covers a lot of different extensions. So this was, at least in my mind, a little bit misleading, unless they plan on eventually adding different sections. And then to me, there'll just be different headings that allow you to group it. But for now, it almost, yeah, that would have been nice. Okay, so that explains why this didn't work. Cool beans. All right, we are gonna migrate some stuff now. Exciting stuff. All right, so I'm going to muscle memory. I'm gonna force myself. No, actually, that's fine. Let's comment this out for now because we're not doing anything with it. And let's migrate some information. All right. So inside of our Vue press, we had a meetups directory. So I'm gonna drop that into, oh wait, whoops. This needs to get deleted. All right, so we're gonna do like a straightforward migration now. I'm not gonna do any fancy transformation. Let's just see what happens. So we're gonna drag meetups directory into here. We had an events directory for our content. We had resources. Okay. So I think those are my big checklist as far as an MVP for the Events 2.0 site. So I think organizer, speaker, those are together right now. I'll eventually split them up. And then the meetup page for all the different things. And I should get a bonus for the events. So knowing that now, let's go ahead and create different pages for that. So at this point, from an IA perspective, I'm just going to keep everything flat. So if you want to find out about meetups, we're going to go to meetups.vue for now. So that should be localhost 3000. Okay. Knowing that, we're going to do the async data. I remember the S this time. And we're going to extrapolate the content module, which we've installed. And then let's see if I remember this correctly. Const page equals, already starting to forget. Do. Eh? This seems weird. Did it? delete everything because it was commented out. All right. Anyways, const data. Oh, wait. Okay. Content. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Here we go. But yep. So as we're using the async here, then we can await, and we're going to use content to fetch our meetup or meetups, right? Meetup slash readme. Poorly named file, but we can deal with that in a second, and we will fetch it. And then we will return page. Then I will just use that next content, binding the document to this page. That is what we learned. So if all goes well and we go to our index, now I can wipe this out. And let's just do, I believe it's Nuxt link 2, and we're going to go to meetups. And I think this should work. Okay, so again, port 3000. Oh, yeah. Silly me. I need to provide some text for that Nuxt link to wrap. That didn't work. I could have sworn it was a built-in ahref class. Hang on now. I provided. I'd be surprised if Nuxtlink didn't have. All right. I would have assumed it just had a slot that took stuff into it. I would be a little sad if Nuxtlink requires a prop for text. Let's find out. Yeah. Just a slot text. Yep. Maybe something yelling at me? Nothing is yelling at me. It is frozen. Oddly enough, hard refresh. All right, let's try to reboot. Yes, some might be wondering, why am I not using the terminal inside of VS Code? Yeah, that's just a bad habit. Used iTurn2 for a long time, so it's sometimes it's nice because then you can like manage your. I have 2 monitors, so it's nice to be able to keep your terminal completely separate. Okay, great. Now it's showing up. Okay, so it must have been a weird thing. Okay, everything is showing up as expected. Again, the style is totally off, and that's because all the styles have been reset. Okay. We have a meetups page now. Let's success. Have migrated the data. And contrary to the perfectionist side of me, I'm not going to get down another rabbit hole. We're going to do the other ones first to make sure we just have, again, our goal here is MVP. So we have a meetups and we have a resources. Sorry, I did meetups, events, and resources. So again, I already know that I is going to change for this in the future, but for the purposes of drilling this down and getting used to Nuxt content, it's getting more hands-on experience. Nuxt content. I was right. Nuxt content document, and again, we can just call this page, and that comes from an async data property. We abstract, destructure the content module. Then we can basically say, hey, for this content, we want to grab, which is right here. This one is resources. So we're going to say resources / readme. And then we're going to have to attach this fetch, which I'm guessing is a method to actually trigger that promise. And this needs to be in await because we are in an async function. With that, we return an object with the page. And now when we go here, sorry, go back. All right, great. Now we can go back to our index and verify, do the next link. Great. And we'll do it to resources and resources. Okay, this is very weird. This should just work. Something's causing this to crash. Doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, that's so weird. Okay, I'm not going to debug this right now. This. And we are just going to go to /resources. Okay. So good. Oh man, definitely need styles. Okay, MVP, focus. This is boilerplate. Don't need to worry about this. All right, whoops. I definitely deleted something I wasn't supposed to. Rats. Oh, woes of not committing your changes. All right, I thought I had the right thing selected. That was sad. That's okay. More practice. Okay, resources and one more. We're just gonna do, oh, sorry, now that I deleted one. All right, so rather than recreate this by hand, let's just make this, let's speed this up a little bit. We have that, So resources, this is events, and we're gonna go ahead and do meetups. Dot view. And all right. Now that everything's good, we should be able to go to meetups. Great. And we should be able to go to events. Awesome. Great. Okay. So this is exciting. So we have successfully dropped in the organizer and speaker resources and the meetup. So actually, I'm just going to call this resources because we haven't broken this up yet, but we did actually move the events. So that's actually more accurate to what's happened. So these pages have had their data migrated. Navbar, aggregate data, that's fine. Search. Okay. So, okay. Ours about there, but let's go ahead and just commit what we have. You know what? I'm going to try to be better at this. All right. We're going to use VS Code to do this. So again, always like just sort of check through the changes. Again, we added these files. That makes sense. This is a straight migration. We basically have our individual pages ingesting this in. I imagine this can actually be maybe refactor. We probably don't want to refactor. That might be too early of an abstraction. And we deleted a bunch of stuff. Oh, right. We migrated it in. So let's go ahead and drag that in. So the feature we've done is we've migrated events, meetups, and resources to Nuxt content. And so for those that aren't as used to sort of the prefixing, that's something that I learned from Comitizen, which a buddy of mine had introduced me to. And basically, Comitizen is a sort of philosophy around commits. And basically, the idea is normally there's like a whole, basically there's this, they had like these categories they believe like you should try to think of your commits in. I found this to be really helpful just because once you get used to it, it actually makes your commit sort of a lot smaller and easier for people to track what's going on because it's more intentional as far as like, are you doing like a bug fix? Are you actually just doing doc changes, or are you doing like a refactor? Because as we all know, it can be really easy to dive in and basically inadvertently just do a bunch of things, and then like either like the moment you need to revert. So it's kind of interesting, but it's almost like I think a little bit ahead as far as like, oh, am I doing a feature of fix in this commit? And so I've sort of come up with my own, so I don't use this outline, but the idea is that basically you have features, fixes. I do one that's called config, just for like configuring things. But so if you're ever wondering, I think a fair bit of the Vue ecosystem, and I can't speak for the rest, uses this sort of prefixing just to give the commits a little bit more sort of sanity and like before they even read your message, they kind of know what they're going to get. The only other thing that is really big for me from the Vue.js event sites that we want to migrate is the ability to search. So right now, basically, we can integrate that. VuePress makes it, first of all, it does out of the box searching as far as like the heading and stuff. And so before I like do the easiest solution, which is basically hooking up Algolia, which actually probably will happen anyways. I really do want to see, actually, though, as far as the content module is concerned, they had mentioned full text search. All right, that's something we should take a look at before I end the stream, because that, like, once we have all this, it looks like the Tailwind exploration. Well, actually, I can do a little bit of that before we wrap up, just because I do want us to play around a little bit with that. So let's just see if there's an easy way to see where the searching happens. So ace, okay, used on the search and filter content. That's not what I want. Let's see, configuration. You can configure the API, you can configure the directory. Okay, cool. So basically, yep. Okay. Fields that need to be indexed to be searchable. Learn about search here. Oh, that's in the fetch. This is such a big piece. I would have half expected it to be like I half expected it to be its own feature, like sort of like content section on the left, just because it's so big. But okay, check this out. So it looks like we get this search method that allows us to grab it and fetch it. Okay. The fields you want must be defined in options in order to be indexed. See configuration. This seems a little circular. Only search title and feature. So, okay, here we go. The default is title, description, slug, and text. I'm going to assume text means whatever's in there already. So let's do a quick, let's just experiment with this a little bit. My guess is then, let's say on this, actually, no, the best way to experiment with this is to go to our index page, right? And I'm curious how far this will take it. But if what they're saying is true, then I should theoretically then, if we have like a text input field, and let's give it the V model of search input, and then because we want to be accessible, we're going to add search text, and this is out of just good practice. Great, and then, oh, that's weird. Where is my text input? I think something's broken again. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so while that's reloading, we have our data, return, and search input, and we're just going to type, we're just going to leave it empty string. Bundling. Okay, search text, great. Okay. So now that we have that, we're going to make sure the V model works correctly. And then I just like to make sure everything in the hot module is correct. That's not good. Weird. It's like the homepage is crashing every single time there's a hot module reload. If anyone watching this is on the Nuxt team, what is going on? I know it's not normally like, or well, I have seen people work on it. I don't know why the hot module reloading is breaking on this. That's super weird. All right, let's not get too sidetracked. I'm going to assume this because I've done this enough. Hopefully everything just works. The question we are after is that searching piece, which to me is rather interesting. So it's saying that, again, if we, inside of async data property, if we fetch the content module, it's saying that we can actually like basically search the titles for a like a certain thing. Oh, this is where on a field title you know what? I'm not confident I can figure this out right now because field value. Okay, I was right. And then this just searches the, okay. So my confusion when I saw this was, normally it says that when you're searching for something, like this is the fields you're looking for. So it kind of looks like you're looking like in the different fields, but as you can see here, this is why you need to read documentation from top to bottom. This is the field we're supposed to be searching and the text that we want to be passing in. So the reason I set up that input field, for those that might be getting ahead, let's just say I'm looking for meetups. I'm going to await this content and I'm going to look in, what was it? Meetup/readme. So inside of readme, we're going to search it. And I don't think, oh, I'm missing a C. Assuming someone saw that. This isn't my problem though. All right, we're just going to try it. I'm not going to hem and haw. So theoretically, I wanted to be able to grab this .search input. And that's what I wanted to search. And then I want to return meetups. What's wrong? Combine view incident. Unexpected. This is in async data. What? Oh, wait. We're in context. This is not as intuitive as I want, but let's go one farther down. I'm just going to say California. Let's not make it dynamic just yet. So, yeah, I know. I fixed those things. Okay, if you really want me to put a V model before type, that's fine. Okay, so now that it's saved, again, this is really weird. It used to sort of it crashing so often. I mean, what was it? These are linting errors, though. That shouldn't stop hot module reloading entirely. Okay. Are we good? We are getting there. So P30. An error occurred. It really doesn't unexpected this in async data. Oh, I'm silly. Yeah, that makes sense. Maximum call stack exceeded. I broke something again. I really can't imagine that's the reason, but okay, let me make sure everything is to go. Okay. 3000. It really doesn't like it. Something is wrong. Range 500. Cannot stringify query builder. Okay, so I think for the sake of time, yeah, that's really weird. So the reason why I'm saying no, wait, oh. Okay, yeah, this search definitely needs more example. Okay, so I think I know what the problem is. You'll notice that this is why I thought it was weird. There actually is a this in the code snippet, and for those who've been following from the beginning, normally in my experience so far, I've been calling the content module directly inside of async data so that it fetches the page. But I think I'm completely incorrect. Because what should be happening is it actually then needs to be, basically it's going to be, I want to say it's a method. Let's see if it's going to fetch and await. This just seems interesting. All right, fine. It's a computer property, and I'm going to say search data. Again, so we have our, whoops. Nope, that's not it either. I thought I copied it. Whatever. So we have our const meetups, and we're going to await this dot content. We're looking inside of meetup / readme, and we're going to go ahead and search for California, and we're going to fetch it, and then we're going to return meetups. I don't think this will work. Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm going to take this out. Yeah, I didn't think so. Outside of an async function. So I'm gonna just do this then. Async get meetups, and then drop that in. Whoops. Const meetups, and then return meetups. Okay. So yeah, that's fine. And then, oh wait, even better. Let's then do meetups we want to display. I'm gonna assume it's an array, and we'll say this dot meetups equals meetups. Gosh, the naming on this is terrible, but trying to figure it out. Okay. So again, let's make sure meetups is rendering. I always like to test that first. So we know we should, inside of our div, li for meetup in meetups. The key is meetup. And we are looking at meetup. And that should, oh, this must be hard to read. Apologies. All right. So again, I don't know what's going on with the homepage. Constantly seems to be breaking on me, even though I'm making sort of these simple template changes. I'm not really sure why the console is not giving me any information. So that is a little aggravating. I don't know if it's because it's in like universal mode or spa world, but yes, this is a bit frustrating. Okay, so our meetups are rendering great. So now we're going to add a button, and we're going to say get meetup data. And when we click on it, we are going to get meetups. What we're going to do. Hot module, client, rebuilt, checking updates for server. Great. And once again, it is completely botched. The hot update is timed out on this page for whatever reason. So I guess on top of other things, I need to see if there's a bug on this. Next.view, hot module reloading. Okay, get meetup data. Okay, so we click. Whoa. Okay, that's pretty good. I think. Avoid using non-primitive as a key. That's fine. That's a warning. My only problem is, so we got back a bunch of data, but I don't see how this is representative of California. Yeah, I don't see how that makes any sense. Await this content search fetch. So searching definitely needs to be boosted. I don't quite understand how searching works. Need more clarity. And so the reason why I think this is important for Nuxt content to succeed is because it is saying, and I believe it. I believe it has this full text search, but it does it like the path to making that work is unfortunately a little bit convoluted. So again, ViewPress, as far as out of the box, does do scraping so that when you type like, you want to look at like containers. This is using the Algolia at this point, but it does do like a basic search for what's going on. And so this kind of feature, like to be easily done, would be nice, either as far as crawling the entire site, or at the bare minimum, make it easier for like people to parse things. That would be good. So that feature is a little tricky. It looks like it's not immediately intuitive out of the box, because I would like to be able to scrape the site. And if I need to integrate Algolia, that's fine. But it does. There are some features in here that I have a feeling just need a little bit more documentation. Okay, so we talked about Tailwind. So as this is Adventures with Tailwind, I would like to explore this a little bit, since basically I would like to kind of wrap it up with Tailwind. So right now, as far as the Meetup page goes, I think the Meetup page is probably the easiest one to take a look at. So here, basically what we have is when users are going to look, you can see it's fairly straightforward. We hook things up so that they are under regions that people identify with, and we just sort of go from there. So let's style this page. So if we go to port 3000, and again, looks like the homepage is broken again. Gosh, that's something. Everything is down. Something is causing that to fumble. I don't know what. Okay, so we're on our events page. So, just as a reminder, event is getting it from the README. And so the README is setting basically standard HTML elements, and just sort of going from there. So we want to style these based on basically like heading sizes and those sort of things. And so for now, for the sake of making everything work, we're going to go ahead and let's we learned earlier that Nuxt content automatically wraps everything. This element here automatically wraps this whole thing in a div for Nuxt content, which is nice. So for now, what we're going to go ahead and do then is let's just see if everything works, right? So we're just going to do color red and font size 2 rep. So if everything reloads correctly, I'm just going to manually trigger the reload. Server rendered content. Unknown events timeline. Okay, fine. Looks like it's complaining about some of the README stuff. Oh, that's not it. Where is this thing complaining? Nope, it's not it. It's not README events. Okay, so it's complaining about that. That's fine. Promise Json timed out. Okay, fine. So maybe the problem ultimately is that the README. So when it was parsing the server side, it was breaking because there were unknown, I don't know, Vue components inside of the Markdown, which is certainly possible. But anyways. So I'm on the Meetups page. Oh, silly me. I'm on the events page. All right, great. Meetups worked. All right, next content. So the question is, what is the deal with Tailwind? So Tailwind CSS, actually I have it right here. So the idea with Tailwind CSS basically is that instead of having sort of standard CSS class where you have to sort of write either everything from scratch, it provides you basically a solid baseline. I think that's the best way to look at Tailwind CSS, is that it's not really supposed to impose any real, call it like a design language on you, the way like if you use Material Design or Bootstrap, like it definitely comes with a heavy-handed like opinion on the way things should look. So in the event of like, so for example, we want to style the H1, you'll notice that all the headings, for example, inside of our page right now, they're all identical, right? Like right now. And so just to show you that it's not identical, if I just style the H2 right now, right, to show that they are identical, you'll notice that this is infuriating. I really need to understand why. So anyways, you'll notice that all of these like H2s or whatever are basically, they're all the same size. They look like normal text. And the reason for that is one of the common mistakes that is often made when it comes to web development, especially when working with CSS, is thinking that like the size of the text correlates with like whether or not like it's an H1, H2, H3. When in reality, headings are really supposed to be determined based on its content, where it exists and relative to it. And again, this is particularly important because not everyone interprets what we see on the screen visually. So we can certainly do things to different visual elements that either make them pop because we want users to pay attention to them, and that's all. That's certainly all fair play when it comes to designing things. But as far as like what the content is at the end of the day, we really want to keep that strictly away from the styles that we attach to them. So that's why I do applaud Tailwind for keeping that sort of methodology of, you'll see that, I think it's in their headings. They explain somewhere that basically like you should use headings that they're supposed to be used, and then you intentionally style it however you see fit. So as far as typography goes, for example, for font sizing, basically they provide you a rhythmic scale. So those that don't have the time or don't know, but like when it comes to typography, you do want it to scale appropriately. Sometimes we pick random sizes just based on how we feel, but as you can see, there is a rhythmic side based on just from extra small base and sort of moving upwards that allows it to grow gradually in a visually appealing way. So for those that don't want to customize their own typographic scale, basically Tailwind provides ones for you out of the box, which is quite nice. So let's see. Are we back up and running again? Because golly, this has been a bit painful. I want to waiting for socket. Gosh. All right. This is really unfortunate. I did not have this problem before. I wonder why. Events is in the core module. Oh, interesting. It might be unique because maybe I have some coexisting dependencies from VuePress. So before anyone takes like the way that this might be Nuxt, it very well may be the repo I'm working in directly, because I think I did a blank one. I didn't have this problem. Okay, so using what we learned just now. So here we have all these, basically these text sizes that come built out of the box. But the problem is normally you would apply these to, again, let's just, wait. Almost did that multi-root node thing again. In Vue 3, we will be able to use multi-root nodes. So typically, I'm just, anyways, text Excel. You'd apply that, and that would automatically change the size of your element, the font size automatically. And so what the newer thing that I think those that aren't as familiar with the CSS realm is that what Tailwind does is it's actually post CSS in the end of the day. So there is this concept called apply, which might be new for people who haven't used it before, which allows you to basically take these sort of class names and basically like, I guess, to like basically integrate them into your definition. So one of the complaints of Tailwind basically is that you might like, typically if you're going to do it all by yourself, as far as like leaving it on the element, it would be like, oh, I want like text to be like the large one, and then I want like color to be red, and then like I want the margin top to be like 5 units, and the margin left to be 4 units. And so very quickly, like people basically found like people don't. I mean, again, it's a matter of opinion. It's a bit of style. They found that this was kind of hard to sort of look at in the HTML. And so in the event, like these are all valid Tailwind CSS classes, we would basically see the post Tailwind, which is, I think you just post CSS underneath, if I'm not mistaken. allows you to then apply these classes into something that you could then sort of reuse. So again, if we call this like section title, this allows you to still reuse the utility first theory that that Tailwind has, as far as like really trying to keep everything flat and it's easy to override things, but yet providing you some structure. This way, we could basically have like section title as you would right, like more people are used to when it comes to CSS, and reuse that as a basis, but while still leveraging. So yeah, it looks like he's yelling at me because I think I think I made this up. Let me just delete color red. But yeah, it would theoretically allow you to do this and then integrate that into your CSS classes. And so I think, yeah, I think I'll do more styling later on. But I think this was pretty successful. As far as our little workflow goes, we learned that the Nuxt content was fairly easy to work with once you got set up. You know, there are some new concepts, you know, for those that aren't new to Nuxt, as far as like doing things like async data. And let me just drop that. So async data was a new concept sort of for me to work with. I haven't really worked with a config property like that before. But then otherwise, so yeah, I think hopefully this was helpful for those that were watching along. Thanks for those who've been here from the beginning. I'll go ahead and try to live stream more of these as I sort of get familiar with Tailwind, and I'll do a bit more live coding. But thanks everybody for joining. And I think, let me see. Yeah, and with that, I will talk to you all later. Thanks for watching.